I have had one of the most interesting years in business in 2025, and the purpose of today's video is to give you a bit of an update as to what's happened in the first 6 months of 2025. There will be a part 2 coming, don't worry, coming out in a couple of days, but I just want to talk you through what's happened, good, bad, indifferent, what's been going on YouTube, and what's been going on at home as well, because I know a lot of people have been asking about what's happened at home, because there's been a lot bubbling away in the background there. There's been a huge amount of change here in 2025, and I wanted to thank you first of all for being on board for it, and also answer some of the questions that you've been asking throughout the year that we never got around to answering. Talk about some of the things that have gone well, some of the things that have gone badly, and a big thank you really for supporting and subscribing to the channel, but also supporting me personally, because I really appreciate it. So this is my gift to you in the festive period. If you're celebrating Christmas, I hope you're having a wonderful time. If you're not, well, the world has closed anyway, so I hope you're having a wonderful time. Personally, not a big Christmas guy, bit of a Grinch to be honest, but I do enjoy the fact that it is a bit of a family time. So whatever culture you're from, whether or not you fancy Christmas or you don't, it's a nice time to just be with the family. Speaking of which, ignore them for a bit and watch this video. Let's talk about 2025. So when I say this has been an interesting year, it's been interesting for lots of different reasons. So as you well know, I've had a baby this year. The business has gone through massive changes this year. We've lost staff, we've gained staff. There's been a lot going on at home. I've moved house as well. We've done a house renovation. I've lost a significant amount of weight as well, which I'm going to talk about and explain to you why that's happened, because I know a lot of people have been asking what's been going on there. And just be sort of cards on the table, warts and all. But let's talk you through from January to June what's happened. So January 2025 was a little bit of a mess, to say the least, because if you don't know, back in October of 2024, I bought my first house, kind of. I'd owned a house before, but that was a long time ago. So it's my first house that I had bought myself. Granted, with the missus, to be fair, she'll take a shot at me for that. So we bought a house in October, and the reason that we did that is because we had had some great news a couple of months before that she was indeed pregnant, which came as a bit of a surprise, not because we weren't trying, but because it happened very quickly, because apparently I'm very manly. It's a surprise mainly because of our age. So we're both encroaching 40, and we didn't truthfully expect it to happen at all, let alone as quickly as it did happen. So obviously blessed, really, really pleased, but it turned the pressure tap on immediately because we lived in a top floor flat, the penthouse I like to call it, with no lift. So it was just stairs up and down. My missus getting pregnant very quickly, all of a sudden, problem. So we tried to find a house and we'd been looking for a while, to be fair, because I wanted a bit of outside space. I'm an outdoorsy sort of person when I can be, and nothing had come up that we wanted until eventually we settled on a little gem that was a complete doer-upper. Unfortunately, what happened with this one, because it was on a really nice plot, even though it was a doer-upper, we ended up in an absolute bidding war with some git from down south who's a cash buyer. And I ended up paying way too much money for it. But we're in a position where we just had to do it. So I am leading on to what was going on in January. So in January, we are mid-build because the boy is due to arrive in March, and it was literally a all systems go, start to finish with this house. So one of the first videos that you saw in January of this year was me with 5 weeks left to go on this project before we're moving in. And I can't tell you, it was just the worst experience of my life. Trades are just, why you can't stick to a schedule is beyond me. It's just beyond me. The Sparky, I could have strangled him. He was leaving everything. Anyway, we got it done, is the long and short of it. But this is the state of the house as we were encroaching just 5 weeks away from our baby boy arriving. Anyway, long story short, coming to March, baby Ralph has landed and I can get back on with my life again. I mean, I'm a proud dad and amazed by the situation. I just wanted to get back to work, truthfully. So we're back into it. Now, the start of 2025 was rough for lots of different reasons. Unfortunately, my good lady had a few sort of issues. So did Ralph, my little boy. And it wasn't sort of plain sailing at the start. It was, a lot of people have much, much worse problems that we were faced with, but it wasn't a simple process. Anyway, he's totally fine. She's totally fine. She's back to her normal, slightly nutty self, so I'm sure she's totally fine. Everything's okay. But it was very difficult as a family. That, coupled with the fact that I'd lost £35,000 in the business in the months that had led up to that point meant that I was under a huge amount of pressure. And one of the first videos that you'll have seen, which is in February 2025, is talking about how much money that we'd lost. Now, look, with business, I get it. It's just one of those things. You have good months, you have bad months in different ones. It's up and down, and you can never look at an individual month and go, oh God, that's the forecast for the rest of the year. But when you have 3 back-to-back bad ones, it does really put you on the back foot. Anyway, good news is we've turned it around this year. Not as well as I'd like to have done, but we have turned it around. We've made up the lost ground. Unfortunately, from a business point of view, our tax year, our business year ends in February. So even though we were losing money still in March, it wasn't, the bulk of it was done in the year before. Anyway, we're then getting our heads down and getting on with it. Now, unfortunately, at the start of the year, Tom, a mate of mine, who I met through YouTube, he was a subscriber of the channel, decided what he was going to do was rent out Croft Racetrack. Now, Croft Racetrack, for those of you who don't know, is based in Darlington. It's not too far from us, about an hour up the road. And the plan of action with that was he was going to rent the track out and we were going to create some content on this racetrack. This seemed like a really good idea back in around about sort of, I want to say November time the year before when we were planning it, because we thought, oh, great shout, we'll get some really fast cars, and he had loads of nice cars. We'll make some great content, not realising just how hard it is to plan and create content. And unfortunately, we released a couple of videos off the back of that track day. One which was going out in a new M5 with Paul O'Neill, who's like a rather famous man from ITV, which was great and I really enjoyed, but did really, really poor numbers on YouTube. And the second one been the biggest flop of a video we've ever done, which was where Tom decided to rent a horse out and we then decided to race a horse against an M2 around the track and see which was fastest when you factored in power to weight. It was a bit of a weird video. Everything should have worked on it, but when we dropped it, it was doing poor viewing figures and we lost 3 subscribers immediately, and I decided to pull the video. I regret that because I should have stood by my decision. However, it is live. And what I'm going to do is a little Christmas treat for you, or festive treat for you, is I'm going to link it. So the end screen on this video is going to be that horse video. And you are welcome to watch it and tell me what you think of it. I thought it was great. Subscribers disagreed, but then again, some you win, some you lose. Now, what this did highlight for us was that when we're trying to create content, because this was around about the time that went, right, let's go for it on YouTube now. Let's really put some effort in, some money. Let's try and find someone to work with us and hold the camera. Because at this time, Callum's still with us, which I'll go into in a second as well. Callum being an amazing member of staff who's sadly not here anymore because he's left, not because he pushed me too far. This was the point where we were really, really starting to push on with it. So we realised quite quickly that trying to force content doesn't really work. And we realised that trying to put together a video with no sort of natural flow to it doesn't really work. And I've noticed this a few times. We've done sort of car review videos. So we reviewed as well in the start of that year a Fiat Panda back in April, did 10,000 views. Now, admittedly, it's a Fiat Panda I need doing a review on, but I've just found that, you know, when you're trying to force stuff together, it doesn't really gel. Now, what did work was when we did a video talking about a VW Touareg that got part exchanged into the business with a missing engine light. This was probably one of the best videos that we've done to date, actually. It's done a couple of 100,000 views, so it's an absolute belter. People really liked it. We've got a load of subscribers off the back of that video. And you know what it is? It was just honestly talking about some of the problems that we were facing, and this being a particularly bad one. In particular, because I'd sold it to a mate who then tried to sell it to We Buy Any Car. We Buy Any Car spotted the problem, reversed the deal. It was just absolute chaos. However, hilarious and did really well. Now, a lot of people have asked what happened to that Touareg, and all these videos, by the way, that we're talking about, I will link in the description below. Basically, what happened to that car was it ended up getting traded on to another guy who was a subscriber based in Leeds who wanted it for a tow car. So we told him what the problems were, which is basically a NOx sensor to do with the AdBlue system. Why someone would take an engine light out for that reason is beyond me. A sensor is a few £100. Anyway, guy wasn't bothered about it. We lost a bit of money on the car. We did all right with the video. I put my mate right. Everyone was happy. But it made me realise that being genuine, authenticity in videos is really, really important rather than trying to force them. And I think that that's why the channel has sort of grown, I'd like to think, fairly quickly. I mean, as I'm speaking to you now, we're on 52,800 subscribers. I suspect by the time this drops with you, I'd like to see that 53. It might be a little bit more. Let me know in the comments below what the subscriber count is on at the moment. Now, obviously we've got this going on in the background, but at the same time, I'm trying to run a business as well. So let me talk you through what the numbers look like. So January, February, as you already know, we lost money. March, we lost money. We lost £4,000 in March. In April, we lost money. And then in May, we made money. So for the first quarter of the year, this is how our quarters sort of fit in, March to May is a business quarter, we lost £1,400 as a business, which, considering that is after I've paid myself and after everyone's been, that's literally after everything. Yes, you don't want to lose money. However, catching up from not having much stock through because of the situation at home, having to sort of start YouTube properly and really push it, we knew that something was going to have to take some punishment somewhere, and unfortunately it was the business in that quarter. Bit of a rough one, to say the least. However, we've got positive news in the next quarter, and I'll talk you through that shortly. However, more videos that came out during that period of time was talking about money, which seems to go down quite well. So we did a video talking about the showroom and how much money I've spent on the showroom, which seems like a ridiculous amount. But then that actually led me on to conversations with another bloke, a guy who owns a company called Ace Automotive in Leeds, which is an American car dealership, who came in to tell me just how much he'd spent on it. It made me feel a lot better about my showroom. However, that video did quite well. And again, I think it was sort of talking about honesty, etc., and sort of just saying, look, this is how it is, and this was the rationale behind it. Now, truthfully, considering the year that we've had, a little part of me regrets that because of how much the house has cost and everything, and I had to pull some directors' loan funds out of the business to try and fund that, and it was all just a real headache. And I do think if I'd have not spent that 40 grand on the showroom, or whatever it worked out as a net cost, I'd have been in a lot better position for it. But I do stand by my decision there. I still think it's a nice place to be for customers. Anyway, we're starting to rifle through the year now, and the more that we're pushing YouTube, the more we're actually getting back from subscribers as well. So genuinely, this channel has always been about having a bit of a laugh, being totally open and honest about what's going on in business, because I think people like to see it, because you walk in a car dealership and it all seems glitz and glamour, doesn't it? And very exciting. And it is exciting, but it's not all glitz and glamour. But what we've found that we've actually got some really solid feedback from subscribers, but also people started to approach us with cars as well. They're selling the cars, or they wanted to buy a car, or whatever it might be. And genuinely, that has been a wonderful byproduct of the channel, but not what we've been trying to push. Now, as a result of which, we've ended up buying some cars from subscribers, and some having problems and some not having problems, it's safe to say. But overall, it's been great to meet some really interesting people coming in. And from our point of view, it's meant that I've not had to hunt and sort of scratch around at the bottom trying to find cars in auction and trying to find cars on private, adverts, etc. But we are still doing that, and we've got plenty of stuff coming through the process to show you on that side of things as well. The more we talk about being honest and problems, etc., the better it seems to be landing with subscribers. And what I'd like to ask there really is there anything that you want to see more of for 2026? Because I've got some really good plans, but you can only sort of plan so much. Content will just happen naturally. But I've got some ideas and things that I want to do. But is there anything that you've really enjoyed so far, or on the channel, or anything, any sort of standout moments? Let me know. Because it's easy to look at view counts and go, oh, we'll do more like that. But you might not necessarily have enjoyed it. It might just have been watchable, if that makes sense. We then bought a Passat that was, oh God, this car had a few issues to say the least, but we thought that we nicked it. So we paid £6,000 for that car. And a lot of people were kicking off about that because it seemed like not a huge amount of money to buy a car for. The retail price on that car was, I want to say, in fact, I'll tell you. Yeah, and the retail price on that car was £14,000. Now, I got a bit of a kicking in the comments for this. Some people agreed that it was a fair price, and the people selling the car said that that's what they wanted for it. I didn't negotiate at all. I just thought that's a fair price on that car. And in my head, I did think, I'm not sure this is going to reach 14 grand retail, because it was a bit of an interesting colour, but it was very low mileage, and that only appeals to certain people, etc. Anyway, we ended up replacing a wing, a door, doing a massive service on the car, which included all 4 tyres, disc and pads all the way around, a timing belt change, an oil change, air filters, you name it. The whole thing got done. Then it needed a load of machine polishing work doing on it as well, because the paint had just been sat on the tree and the paint was pretty rough. We had a huge amount of time in that car. And I know a lot of people have asked, whatever happened to that Passat? Well, I can tell you, we sold it. And we sold it for £14,000. So that was absolutely the right car to buy. It's just, did it make sense to have that amount of money tied in the car? Because we didn't sell it, until October, and we bought it in April. So it was a long time to be sat on a car for, and it required a lot of work and a lot of mucking about trying to buy parts for it, trying to find a door in the right colour and all that sort of stuff. So yes, it's a big margin, but a huge amount of work. Absolutely the right call though, and we enjoyed it, and the customers were happy, and the person that bought the car was very happy. We ended up getting a really nice part exchange off it. That was a good bit of business. In fact, in that month, May, when we bought that car, that was our first month of turning a profit in that year, and then moving on into June. June has been the best month that we've had all year, and bearing in mind I'm filming this in December 2025. In June, we sold 12 cars in June. Now that doesn't sound like a huge number of cars, and it isn't, but when some of the cars have got good margins on, like there's some in here that sort of, jumped off the page as fairly decent margin cars, it does carry you through. I keep it tight here, so we don't need to make a huge amount of money, which means we don't need to sell a load of cars, which means we don't need to buy a load of crap and desperately try and get it through the process. We can be a little bit careful with what we're doing. So June was the best month of the year. Unfortunately, we also ended up with a few warranty claims during the start of the year as well. For example, we had a purple BMW X5 that we bought off a guy called Chops. You'll know Chops from Chops Garage. We sold it to a really nice guy called Ash and his family, and they bought the car, and then unfortunately ended up with some problems with it, which were absolutely not his fault at all, not our fault. We didn't know they were there, and it was just a bit of a pain in the backside. However, again, because of YouTube, so that video has done 83,000 views, which is, watch this video before you buy an X5. And the actual result on that is, unfortunately, we didn't make enough money on it to cover the problems with it, but it wasn't far off. Needed a battery and a couple of other bits. So YouTube actually has been working hand in hand with the business really well. So that kind of took us to around about the midpoint in the year, at which point my little boy is 3 months old. We're now settled into our house. We're now in summer. Things are starting to go really well, finally. And unfortunately, at that point, we are starting to think about Callum's departure. So Callum has been a big part of my life actually over the last couple of years, and the business. So he's a lovely guy. We've done a video in part 2, you'll see it, of him leaving. And he basically came on board, cap in hand, wanting a job, took him on, not thinking a lot of it, and he became a really good friend, and still is a really good friend to this day. And when we got into sort of June time, we were looking at Callum's replacement, because unfortunately he was going to Sweden, or so was the plan, and more will be revealed on that in part 2 of this little video that we've got going out to you. Now, I did end up taking on another chap at this point, who's a chap called Alex. Now, Alex has come in not only to help with YouTube, which he does a lot of bits on, but he also does the photography and the media stuff on the business as well. So he's basically employed by Cubic Cars to do Cubic Cars stuff, but he's very felt helpful to be holding the camera and help with editing as well. So Alex has now been with the company for 6 months. I've kept him on, and I think it's because I feel sorry for him because he's quite frail. But jokes aside, this was the first proper investment into media in the business, which when you watch part 2 of this video, you'll understand has really started to push on. So the last video that I did in the first half of this year was talking about a year on YouTube and time to give up the day job. And it's just talking about how the subscriber count was growing and how the income was starting to grow. And we are now in a position where it is pretty much wiping its face, but things have changed quite substantially in the back end of 2025. And that is what's going to be coming to you next. Purposely done this in 2 halves because I know that me waffling on for a while is sometimes quite hard to deal with, especially when it goes on for an hour. So, thank you for tuning in. The next video is going to be coming out on New Year's Day. When are we dropping part 2, Alex?
29.
On the 29th. And if you want to see that, subscribe, you'll know more about the second half of the year. But I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us for the first half of the year, and I look forward to talking you through the second half of the year, where I'm going to touch more on my weight change as well, and what's been going on in the background there as well, because I know a lot of people have been very interested. In particular, a particular guy, who I forget his name, but decided he wanted to bully me, and we called him out on that as well. That went well. But I shall see you on the next one. Cheers.